Meeting open at 1 o'clock. Today is a special meeting of council and it is to discuss the proposed changes to the organisational structure. So we have no leave of absence, declaration of any material personal interest, conflicts of interest by councillors or any senior officers. I haven't received any, I don't believe you either have, Mr CEO. I do know that from time to time things will crop up, so we'll just deal with them as they do. So we'll move straight into 4.1, the proposed changes to the organisational structure. Now, I will hand that over to you, Mr CEO, but I guess what I do want to say first up is that the organisational structure is definitely not something that's been COVID-driven, COVID-related. Our council has certainly been on the journey last year looking for efficiencies. So I just really did want to make that really clear. So I'm going to hand it over to you to flesh that out a bit more for us, please.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. That's a perfect segue because you are absolutely correct. Council embarked upon this process through an organisational effectiveness review well over a year ago now. During that review, staff actually told us that they wanted us to break down silos within the organisation, that they wanted us to find efficiencies, and that they wanted us to create a culture that supports an effective, efficient, forward-thinking organisation which is focused on our customers and is flexible. So, realigning the organisational structure as we have done and right-sizing our organisation is one important component of that OER process. There are many others, as you know, and we'll work through those in the future. Just to run through a little bit of the history of the process, I guess. Starting in January of this year, Council adopted an initial revised organisational structure on the 22nd of January. That revision really focused on realigning some functions, but also on reducing the number of management positions in the organisation, and as you know, we reduced them from 14 to 9. That was the first step in terms of realigning the organisation to improve both effectiveness and efficiency. We then, after that structure was adopted, appointed 2 new group managers, and soon after that, all 3 of our existing group managers were given the task of reviewing their group structures in much more detail. So this report that's before you now is the result of the review that's been undertaken by the group managers and myself. We expect that it will take probably up to 30 September to finalise the movement of staff to positions within the new structure, and that's because of the number of processes that we have to undertake as we move staff. And for example, some positions will need to be vacated and filled. We need to rewrite position descriptions, and of course, importantly, we need to consult with affected staff and the unions throughout the process, and that's something that we've taken seriously. I did note in the report that it is estimated that in the first full year after all of the the new structures have been filled, positions in the new structures have been filled, that we would save around $2.5 million per annum in our wages costs, and that's in today's dollars obviously. So that's a significant saving. And yes, associated with that there is some reduction in service level, and that we see that around some of the things we've moved out of in terms of regional development and obviously the staging post. But the saving has been achieved without reductions in core business service levels that you would look to as a council in terms of what we need to deliver. That's probably all I would like to say on it at this stage. So once council adopts it, assuming you do, then the process of implementation begins in earnest, and there will be a lot of work to do around that. So can I perhaps throw it open to any questions or comments at this stage, Madam Mayor?
Councillors?
Yeah, firstly, probably I'd like to thank Ian for the work he's done on this, and I think it's overdue. I think it's something that's going to take this council into the future. It's going to help with our financial sustainability into the future. The work, as you said, has been done over the last 18 months. This hasn't just happened. There's been a lot of work done in the background and behind the scenes. And I think, to me, in my eyes, it's about changing the culture of our council, of of how we do business, which again will then affect our bottom line. The wages of local government is a lot higher than what our public sector is. So we need to be mindful of the output that we're doing with that. We've got to make sure we're accountable and we're what do you call it? We've got to make sure that we're spending that money wisely, and that goes with right throughout the whole of the establishment. We've got to make sure, I think, and it starts with the top and it works its way down. It's all about the leadership of everyone and all those leaders as they go down. The leader of every department that we've got here has got to be accountable, and they've got to set that culture. And I think by the look of this is where it will be, and that's where we'll achieve that. So I think it's a good thing, and I support it 100%. So.
Thanks, Councillor Cook. I appreciate your comments.
Any other questions, comments, Councillor Hosteen?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just to echo Councillor Cook's comments about the review taking place and what that means for the organisation going forward. I think we all know that this organisation, after the 2011 floods, had huge numbers of staff added to the workforce, which was needed at the time. And since most of that work some years ago has been completed, we've moved towards getting back to where we need to be. But I guess having a proper structured review then sets out, well, what do we really need in 2020 and going forward? Because it's quite different to what it was back in 2011, 2013, when we had all those extra people come in. So I think it's really important that this is rolled out and it will set this council for the future. And as Councillor Cook said, it will certainly cut costs going forward, and hopefully within the next few years we'll see that in our rates going out to the community. I'm mindful though that we need to be really careful about what services we may reduce and what parts of the organisation that we may no longer need to be doing for the community, because over the last decade probably there are areas that we have been working in that maybe we don't need to be. So I think it's a good thing, and it will lead to a much better outlook for our community going forward. And I just commend the CEO and the staff who've been working on this to make sure it comes to fruition. And I'm sure the community in the long term will see the benefits.
Any further questions, comments? Councillor Polchewski.
I'd also like to agree with all the comments made, and just point out that a review of an organisation is something that needs to be done on a regular basis to make sure that we're operating as efficiently as we possibly can. It leads into having the right culture, having the right organisational structure, and our people are our greatest asset after all. And I think if we can get that right and constantly review it, it will help us operate efficiently in the future, as previous comments have said.
No further questions? Yes.
Just that I appreciate Councillor Holstein's comments, thank you. And I also would like to say, Councillor Kolashevsky, you made a good point in saying that this is an ongoing, this exercise is ongoing. So I mentioned the 30th of September in terms of the implementation of this stage of the structure, but obviously that's not the end of the process. The process will continue on in one form or another as we work through and continually find efficiencies and ways of doing business better. So, and there will be certainly more, there will be more tweaks to our organisational structure as we move beyond 30 September.
No further comments or questions? Can I have a move for the recommendation, which is that Council approve their realigned organisational structure effective from 1 July 2020 and authorise implementation by the Chief Executive Officer. Mover, moved by Councillor Cook, seconded by Councillor Wilson. All those councillors in favour? And it's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. There being no other business, declare the meeting closed at 1:10. Thank you to councillors, thank you to staff, and thank you, Don, for coming across the road to report on the special meeting. Grateful.